So today we are going to talk, and I'd love for this to be a very engaging conversation. We're going to talk about the importance of, why is there a need to create a clinical advisory board for your digital health startup or any startup in the healthcare space at that matter, whether it be a, med tech, if you're developing a device, or a diagnostic, pharmaceutical, or a health tech. So I'm going to share with you some of the keys to success, what you should look out for, and why is this important. I, oops, my hand moved too quick. And like Mary said, my name is Aliya Aaron. I am the founder, CEO, and executive director of Nursing Innovation Hub. And we are a Nursing Innovation Hub. It was founded in 2019. The Hub is what we go by. We are a technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship hub. We really focus on providing support, resources, and access to investors for capital for those startups that are looking to build products, services, and solutions for healthcare. My background is in nursing. I've been a nurse for well over 20 plus years, serial entrepreneur, and also a researcher. So I have a keen focus on developing new solutions that can help improve outcomes specifically and bring value to those that need it the most. We are located in Miami within Miami's healthcare district, and but we provide services and support to innovators globally. So we have a network of 8,000 plus within 5 countries, and we partner with leading organizations and healthcare institutions, as well as research institutions that can provide support, ongoing support for innovators. So thank you all for having me here today. And just a side note, so I am from North Carolina. I have a little Southern twang and I talk fast. So slow me down, ask questions if you need to. All right. So here's our leadership team, myself, as well as Paul Rope and Shanna Doucette. Shanna actually is based out of Texas. She's the system director for the Center for Innovation at Harris Health. So she knows Texas scene very well. Here's our advisory board and why it is important to establish an advisory board. We have a host of industry experts with a variety of knowledge, keen to healthcare, technology, business, as well as science and capital raising. We actually just brought on 2 new advisors to our board, which aren't pictured here, but one that has a very heavy investor background and the other is in business venture. So we'll be updating and including them as well. So let's talk about, why is it important to create a board for your new startup? There's so much to be said here, but in quick bullet points, right? The creation of a clinical advisory board is, we're looking at when you are developing a product for healthcare, it is important that you have those experts to the table that can provide you with industry insights and knowledge that can position your solution for that marketplace. And in addition to, it is a very, creating an advisory board is a very cost effective measure that can gain you tremendous insight for the long run and provide you with a framework of success. Advisors are able to share insights. They provide you with introductions to investors if that's what you're looking for, that can help you raise the capital that you need. They also can help you with strategy. If your target is to exit, for providers, I'm sorry, the advisory board, those that are on the board would have that industry knowledge to really help strategize and talk about an exit strategy, as well as introductions to strategic partners. I mean, there's a host of reasons why there's a need to create an advisory board. Now, I'll tell you that, with Nursing Innovation Hub, we work with a host of startup companies from around the globe. Those that have already established an advisory board are very well positioned for having those talks around what are your business strategies? What is your 2-year plan, your 5-year, your 5-year plan? Have you thought about and have you really evaluated your company's valuation? Because oftentimes when new entrepreneurs are starting off, you don't know everything, right? You're not an expert at everything. So you have to surround yourself with those that have that industry knowledge that can support you in a way that you can help accelerate your business. And the best way to do that is to create a clinical advisory board for those healthcare ventures that you're looking to position in that space. How many of you on the call now are developing a new product? You can raise your hand just kind of in your, on your screen. Are you in the process of developing a product, service, or solution? And if you are, do you have a clinical advisory board? I'll be interested to know. Or are you in a position where you are thinking about, should I create, do I need a board? Just wondering where we are. Okay, I don't see any hands raised. All right. So the next topic is, before you decide, all right, I need a clinical advisory board, right? Let's take a step back and say, let me ask myself, right? What is the single greatest, most important problem that I need to solve, right? Because this will help you identify those SMEs, subject matter experts or executives, that you will need to target, right? To bring opportunity to your company. And then you ask yourself, what types of subject matter experts are uniquely positioned to advise my company on this? Are you looking for, when we talk about clinical advisory boards, are you looking for a nurse that has industry expert and knowledge in critical care, such as myself? Are you looking for a healthcare executive, let's say a physician, chief medical information officer, because you're developing a novel EHR solution? Are you looking for a pharmacist because you're developing a new medication dispensing device and you could use the help of a pharmacist in that area? So you want to identify who exactly is your target and how can they, what can they bring to your company in the advisory capacity to that specific topic or problem that you're looking to provide solutions to. And what's the duration of the board? Are you looking to create an advisory board that will have a duration of 1 year to be exact? Or is this an ongoing board? Or is this a 3 month, 6 month board position? All of these questions that you ask yourself before you solicit, hey, I'm looking for clinical advisors for my company, because they're going to ask you those questions anyway. So it's important to have them already lined up and identified so that easily you can easily dispense that information out. And then also, how are you going to compensate your advisors for their time and effort, right? Is this going to be a monetary compensation? Are you going to compensate them for per hour that they attend meetings or provide advisory services? Are you looking to compensate them for equity in the company based on the amount of effort, right? All important questions. So key elements: specifically, have a specific purpose for the board. People don't get together just for the sake of getting together. I tell you right now, we have too many meetings just to get together to talk in circles, right? There's an overkill of Zoom calls, overkill of meetings. People need specific. Why are we meeting? What are we here for? What is the purpose? What's our mission and goal and vision? Have those identified so that you can clearly state those and that people can have a clear understanding of the goal. And then also, you want to closely vet those members that you bring onto your advisory board, because remember, this is your company, either as a founder, a co-founder, or this is your idea. You hadn't necessarily founded the company yet. So you want to make sure that those advisors that you bring on, you vibe with, right? It's all about a vibe. You got to have a rapport. You need to have a vibe with them. and be able to agree upon the operating goals of the company. You would not want to bring someone onto your advisory board that is against every single thing that you propose for your business. You do want opposition, because opposition brings a level of decision making that is very well needed within the startup world. But you also want those that have a keen sense of understanding of what your business is about, the goals, the mission, the vision, and they are in alignment with your company. And then you also want to make sure you have members contribute ideas on an ongoing basis, right? Because that is what keeps the momentum going. That is what keeps those members engaged from a high level to want to support your business and want to see you win and succeed. Ongoing communication, ongoing engagement. It doesn't have to be every week, every 2 weeks, but it has to have some sort of standardized schedule, if you will. And we'll talk about that later. You know, do you meet monthly? Do you meet quarterly? Any questions? Any feedback so far? I'd love to hear any comments, and we can get to that as well.
I would like, if I may.
Hi, Victor. Yes.
Thanks for this great topic, by the way. I'm actually based in Germany,
Okay.
and kind of, joining you from a bit far away. But what's interesting is the incentivization schemes for the advisors, and like if you think about it in terms of vesting, and how does it work in this case? Like, say if you get an advisor on board, and if you're talking about reimbursing them somehow, what would be the best practices for that?
So you definitely want to, okay, so let's back up. So when you talk about bringing advisors on and giving them, equity investment in the company, if you are looking to seek investments for your company, you want to make sure that you don't give out too many up front, right? Because investors will look at, well, how much is left? So typically in smaller companies, 1% investment over, a period of time with a cliff, those are ideal for advisors that are supporting your company, but maybe not in a leadership capacity, meaning not as acting CFO or acting COO or acting CEO, but in an advisory capacity. But they bring a lot of industry knowledge. They have a huge network and can connect you to those that will be particularly interested and act as an evangelist in your best interest. And we'll talk about that later. Right. There are structures, and there's no right or wrong approach, except you don't want to give all of your equity out. And
Natural.
Yeah.
I mean, okay. Thank you for answering.
Sure. Tell me, are you in the process of developing, and you have an idea, or do you have a startup, or are you just inquiring?
So we're a seed stage company based in Germany that we're about to go into pilot trials, and we actually have advisor, like for example, a key opinion leader based in Italy is prepared to go and begin the pilot trials after we close the seed round. And the question arises is, for example, if we pick between clinicians to put on your advisory board, what other factors one has to consider? At which point do you want to take into consideration things like competition between experts in the field? Can you put the wrong person on board? What do you want to go? How many do you want to have? One surgeon, two surgeons? That's kind of interesting. I love to hear your perspective on that.
Absolutely, and all those are really good questions, because if you're developing a product, let's say you're developing an orthopedic product, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, you would want the expertise from orthopedic surgeons, right, or nurses that work on the orthopedic floor. But again, you could also use the expertise of a nurse or physician that works in general medical. But you do want to consider, right, their position on the board. And you sometimes, you will have opposing opinions, which is fine. But if you seek out those that have specific industry knowledge, most likely they will align with the use for the product, right? If you're building an orthopedic product and you only have orthopedic surgeons, as opposed to an orthopedic surgeon and a labor and delivery physician,
Right.
right? You build your advisory board based on your use case for your product.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions, comments? I'd love to hear it.
Aliya?
Yes.
Hi, my name's Amanda and I'm in Dallas,
Hi,
Texas.
Amanda.
Yeah, hi. And working on a digital health startup in the pediatric mental health space.
Mhm.
My question is about kind of your advisory board versus what in my mind is a clinical advisory or review committee. So in our case, we have a small, advisory board that's a mix of subject matter experts, technical people, a business person that knows the startup world, and they're advising us now. We've thought that at some point we might also want or need what we are calling like a clinical review committee that meets periodically to kind of provide another layer of assessment of what we're doing, ensure our evidence base, but they would be different from a traditional company advisory board where we do have subject matter experts that are relevant to our space. Do you make a distinction between those two, or could you talk about that a little bit in terms of kind of one versus the other? Or I assume what you're talking about here are kind of your corporate a traditional advisory board that has subject matter experts. But if you could address kind of that distinction, that would be super helpful, if now or later in the presentation.
Yeah, no, this is good because when you're talking about your company and what you're looking, your purpose, there's a different purpose for each board or for each group. And the purpose for the advisory board specifically is to give organizational corporate direction without the financial implications as the board of directors, but they are able to provide you that expertise level of advisory services. Now, what you're talking about more so from that clinical level acts more so as a clinical expert group or clinical focus group, if you will, where they are actually only focused on the product and how it fits within the clinical workflow and the implications related to the product's development, as well as the outcomes, as well as patient outcomes. So two totally different, right? Because that expert group of clinicians would more so be your hands-on clinicians that would utilize the product. So this is kind of like your end user focus group is what it sounds like. And that group doesn't have any decision-making power, but what they do would provide insights. So they're more so your market research group where they provide the insights on how well that product fits into the clinical workflow or the feasibility of the product, as opposed to the advisory board where most often they don't necessarily dig deep into the product positioning in the marketplace and the bill. Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about those 7 steps to building a board for success, right? So I mentioned this before, you want to articulate your specific goals of the board. Nobody wants to come in blindfold, like come show up to a meeting and like, now what are we here for and what are we talking about, right? You want to articulate this up front before you even ask anyone to join or be involved in your board of advisors. What are your specific goals of the board? SMART goals, right? Specific, measurable, attainable, timely. And then you also want to choose those knowledgeable SMEs or subject matter experts that can bring insights to your board. Like I said, if you're developing a pediatric medical device, you want to look for pediatric nurses, pediatric surgeons, pediatric intensivists, or those that will utilize the product. If your use case is for your product to be within a pediatric acute care setting, you would not necessarily want to invite those on your advisory board that only work in pediatric oncology on an outpatient basis, right? It has to make sense so that their expertise aligns with the mission and vision of your company and your product as it fits into that acute care space. Likewise, you wouldn't want to have a board full of outpatient outpatient physicians when you're developing a inpatient product for an ER, right? You also want to identify and choose a diverse composition of board members. Do you want an all-female board? Do you want male and female? Do you want to make sure that you are balanced from I mean, the world is made up of blacks and whites, and we have Indians. We have a composition in the world. So you don't want to have a board full of just one ethnic group when you're building for healthcare, because healthcare is diverse. You need to be able to have a board that represents the population that you are serving, right? Because this helps to eliminate unconscious bias, right? As you see, our leadership team and our board is diverse. We, like I said, we just brought on 2 males onto the board because we want a different perspective. We have a mixture of ethnicities to bring that perspective in. It gives you a very well-rounded board, and everyone with their own industry expertise. You also want to schedule those meetings, so monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, whatever fits your schedule and fits within your goal, which is what you want to schedule for, so everyone knows when the meetings are. And you want to create an efficient operational structure so that there is a hierarchy, right, of reporting and how to escalate when issues are not resolved. And understand the distinction between the advisory board versus the board of directors, 2 different boards, right? The board of directors actually has some fiduciary responsibility within the company. The advisory board does not. They are advisors to the company, oftentimes in a volunteer capacity, being compensated for their hour as a consultant or with equity in the company. Very different from the board of directors. And then obviously compensate them like we just talked about. Any questions or comments?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
And do you find differences, like with the startups that you work globally, differences in the approach to building up advisory board? The reason I'm asking is because I first started in Australia, and in Australia, it's a very common thing to just rat pack your board quite heavily. And but in Germany, for example, that's not the case whatsoever. It's much more of a humble exercise if most people don't even show the advisory board on the website or anything like that. What's your experience in that?
You know what? That's a good point, because there are very distinct cultural differences, right? I guess where you are. Here in the United States, it's very common that the advisors, the board of directors are shown on the website so that people can get a glimpse of the company and the knowledge, the knowledge that the board of advisors or the board of directors bring to the company, especially if you are really seeking outside support, because it gives you a sense of reputation for the company. So that really would depend on the cultural humbleness of the area where you're developing from or developing in.
Right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, can I also ask a question?
Yes.
So the differentiation between, clinical advisory board versus board of directors, can you go a little bit more detail on the mission or the goal for the both boards? I understand in terms of the responsibility part, there's a differentiation, but
sure,
in terms of the responsibilities, I mean, not responsibilities, but the goals of both entities, especially for startups, the lines are murky.
Right. So we'll start with the clinical advisory board. Now, I use the word clinical advisory board because I specifically am targeting those companies that are building products, services, or solutions for healthcare. And when we talk about healthcare is very much a clinician-based system, a patient-centered system. So clinical advisory board is where we're focused on. Now, you can have various different advisory board. You can have a technical only advisory board. You can have a clinical advisory board and a business advisory board. The clinical advisory board, the goal of the clinical advisory board is to provide expert knowledge and clinical insight to your company as you look to position your product, service, or solution into the healthcare space. So that is simply the goal. These are experts within the healthcare field, nurses, physicians, pharmacists, researchers, dentists, right? Bioscientists, experts within the clinical health space that have the knowledge, industry expertise that can sit down with you and say, tell me about your product. You give them your 5-minute elevator pitch, and they can provide you a very structured approach to helping you position your product into a hospital, a care space, and provide you with insight on perhaps, and again, it also kind of bends into that user focus group, perhaps based on their experience, why this product may not fit well for this specific clinical group that you're targeting. It's very well clinical based. Now, the board of advisors necessarily is not clinical based. These are business experts that can help position your company from a financial standpoint, right? That can provide you with a snapshot of, your company's valuation, your overarching exit strategy that you will talk about to your clinical advisory board. But typically your board of advisors goal is to get your company financially positive, as opposed to the clinical advisory board, which is focused on getting your product to market in the healthcare market. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay. So these are some of the leading board roles. You have your evangelists, you have your clinical leader, and you have your reimbursement expert. There are many more, but these are 3 I wanted to point out. So let's talk about, so for instance, you said you were building a product for pediatric care, right? All right, so you would want someone on your board, your clinical advisory board, who can scream from the top of the mountains how great this product is, how it will benefit, the world, the healthcare, the ecosystem. They're going to be writing papers about it, spreading it to all the peer-reviewed journals. They're going to talk about it in presentations. They're your side, we call it the wingman, right? They're your wingman, your wingwoman. They're talking about it to any and everyone to help spread the word. These are your evangelists, right? Then you have your clinical leaders. Now, again, one person can be all 3 of these, but just pointing this out, you have your clinical leader. The clinical leader is a thought leader in their respective industry that can talk about your product's usability, design, market fit within the clinical workflow, because you are building products for healthcare. Healthcare is patient-centered, clinician-driven. So your clinical leader is going to be able to give you insight on, I don't know, most nurses don't typically use that product, or we use that product, but we use it for a different reason. That design of your product doesn't fit into the nursing uniform pocket. It's too big. Nurses aren't going to carry it. They're going to leave it on the, here, or that product doesn't really fit, or that service or solution doesn't fit into the clinical workflow. The doctors aren't going to use it because it adds too many clicks to their workflow. This is where the clinical leader comes in. Oftentimes, with my experience, as a critical care nurse, as a trauma nurse for over 20 plus years, I sit on boards as a clinical leader because I'm able to bring that industry knowledge and expertise around user workflow. Then you have your reimbursement expert. Now, this is a kicker for medical device and healthcare companies, particularly because you can build it, but doesn't mean that they're going to pay for it. So now you've wasted all your time building this product and spending a lot of money when you're not going to get, the hospitals are going to use it, but they're not going to get reimbursed for it. So if there's no reimbursement code, throw it out the window because it has to match reimbursement code for the insurance companies to provide reimbursement for. So you want to make sure that you have someone on your advisory board that can speak to this and speak to the value proposition as to why this is important. Because when you start looking for investors, they are focused on their ROI, which is the return on investment. And oftentimes that's tied to the reimbursement code. This person typically is someone that has legal expertise in those subject areas. So let's talk about that. Have you all thought about the reimbursement aspect of building your product, service, or solution? Any questions on that, or insight? Because this is often overlooked and it becomes a huge issue when you're talking about commercializing and marketing your product and you realize that there's no reimbursement code tied to it.
Yeah, what area do you think such like reimbursement expert, are we talking about like consultants or former entrepreneurs who've done this before? What would be the kind of a figure you're talking about?
So these are typically industry experts within the healthcare law, the coding, the billing and coding, right? Those that work on reimbursement codes within hospital structures that know the coding. I'm not an expert on this, so I defer to my experts that have this clinical, legal, reimbursement code knowledge. So this would be, again, someone who has or currently works in the area of of coding or legal, because obviously they know the reimbursement laws. I mean the
Okay, thank you.
yeah. Oh, so those are my slides. I want to open it up. I'm going to stop sharing now and open it up, and let's just have a chat. But I do want to share, these are all of our connections. Would love for you to stay connected to me, to the hub. And I did drop it in the chat as well, how you can connect with us. So let's talk. So let me stop sharing my screen, and let me change my view somewhere. Oops. Oh, here we are. Okay, this is wonderful. So I would love to hear those that are on the call. We have time now, tell us where you're from, right? And why you're interested in learning about clinical advisory boards and structure. And let's see if we can answer some questions, share some insight. We learn from each other, right? So Amanda, you share. Amanda, where are you? You're in Texas?
Yes, I'm in Dallas.
Okay, you're in Dallas. And Victor shared as well. Would love to hear from you, Alex. Oh, it said Alex, but please. Oh, there it is, Alex. It moved. The screen is like a board, it's like tic-tac-toe. I can't keep up. Is it Praveen? I don't want to mispronounce. Please share.
Yeah, it's Praveen. Prav is my nickname. I'm in Miami.
Okay.
So we're building like some augmented reality for healthcare products. So I've done a lot of like hackathons, things like that, and I have some experience in healthcare IT.
Mm-hmm.
But that's healthcare is such a regulated industry, so I'm trying to learn as much as I can. In the past, like when we try to do some of these things, like hospitals want clinical trials, things like that. So I'm learning how to do all those things right now.
Oh, very well, very well. Is there any particular questions you have? We're based here in Miami too. So
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, cool.
yeah, based here in Miami, sunny South Florida.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I
Yeah,
guess. Yeah,
do you have a target population?
yeah.
Do you
Right
have
now,
a dermatology or? Mhm.
it's with these augmented reality glasses. Like South Florida is a big hub for that. A lot of
Right.
startups here doing that. So, basically, eye doctors. Short and sweet.
Okay, so the ophthalmologist is
Yeah,
your
in the
target.
past we did like virtual reality for physical therapy, but a little bit moved beyond that right now.
And how have you had the experience or opportunity to actually work with the ophthalmologist and building out your solutions? Because I know that getting time with the clinicians is hard sometimes.
Oh yeah, yeah. I have a lot of friends who are doctors, so kind of
Right.
grew up with them. So it's a lot of just asking, and bringing up like things I did for them in high school or something, random
Right.
stuff.
Okay. Well, please send me an email. I'd love to connect with you, especially since we're here in Miami, and chat more.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks.
There's Alex. Hi, Alex.
Hello,
Hi, how are you? Where are you
I'm good.
situated?
I'm in Austin, Texas.
Oh, okay, nice. So yeah, so where you're interested in building a startup, you got an idea, or where are you in your?
Yeah, so I'm a UX designer. I work for a healthcare startup, and we actually do have a clinical advisory board. I'm actually more interested in slightly different, which is just kind of casting a wider net, and it would be like a user advisory group maybe, but we don't have our users yet. And so I'm looking at are there other possibilities to kind of reach out clinicians? It's so hard to get the time of clinicians,
Yeah.
even if you're paying. I know there are some specialist recruiting organizations, but that gets very expensive very quickly. So, we have success working with patient user groups or patient groups that aren't even users necessarily because they're very motivated. But how can as a designer, how can I kind of get access or work with more clinicians in kind of a wider but maybe shallower approach
Yeah.
than the advisory board?
Oh, okay, no, sure. So I'll tell you one of the areas that, and not to toot, but what Nurse Innovation Hub does well is because we are clinician founded, clinician based, we have a lot of clinicians that are just members. So a lot of our networking events are filled with nurses or physicians or whoever, and you just can network with them. But another way is some of the like Temple, right? I mean, some of the opportunities that are provided, there are nurses and other clinicians that attend. And I am a huge proponent of LinkedIn. LinkedIn has thousands, millions of clinicians on there, which I can tell you now that most clinicians don't check their emails regularly if they are in patient care. But just reach out to them and say, hey, I'm developing this product because they want to share, especially physicians. They want to share their knowledge on product development. Nurses are a little bit shyer, right? But they want to have some input into these new solutions that are coming to market. So just reach out and tell them what you're doing. Would love to get some, a quick 2-minute with them. That's what I encourage, and to attend other events that they will be there. Now, since the world is opening back up, we may have more in-person meetings where it gives you a bigger opportunity, a wider opportunity to meet others. There were a couple hands raised and I didn't see it in the chat, but did I miss anyone's question? Hi, Josiah thanks for joining us. Good to see you here. Oh, I can't hear you. You're on mute. Oh, there you are.
Thanks, Aliya. Thanks for the great session. It's insightful and eye-opening. My name is Josiah Keshala. I'm from Africa, but I'm based in the United Kingdom. So I say this timely for me because I'm working on a startup presently, and I think some of the session gave clarity and direction to what issues I'm trying to resolve. But I think I still have 1 or 2 questions, if I may ask.
Please.
Okay, regarding compensating advisory boards, I used to think that offering something in terms of financial reward might sound insulting, because these are big people up there, and you trying to say you want to offer them something financial might be a little bit like an insult. I used to think like that, but this has changed my mindset about that. But the question I want to ask is, how do you propose that? Do you design a proposal specifically for that? Because it's not something you can just slide into their inbox or send a mail and say, is there a way of designing a sort of proposal for that? And if so, how can one go about that? That's number one. Number two, at what point do you get the advisory board in place? Is it when the idea is still in the formative stage, or when you're already finished with the idea and you're ready to kick off, or after you have started off? I think that area, because why I ask that is I'm thinking, if you propose for someone to be on your advisory board and the idea is in the formative stage, it might be difficult for them to really see the concrete picture and want to gel into it. So these are areas that I think I'm struggling with. I'm trying to start up a digital academy for African nurses, because we have a lot of nurse innovators struggling in Africa. I have a personal story. I struggled for 15 years as a nurse innovator, and I felt I was going round and circle because I didn't have someone to hold me by the hand, mentor me, coach me, and take me to a shorter route. And a lot of African innovators are struggling presently. So I'm building a digital academy where Africa's best innovators can be mentored and coached by the best innovators in the world, especially nurse innovators. And so that's what I'm doing presently. Is the stage is a formative idea. I'm trying to put things on ground, put things on paper, and then go from there. So this is coming time.
Sure. Yes. No, please. So thank you for asking those questions. Very relevant. So the first question is, when do you, or was that the second question? The first question was about the advisory agreement. There are standardized templates, and you can Google them. They're all out free on the internet, standardized advisory agreements that you can pull down and use, that you can start with. Because remember, as a startup, oftentimes funds are limited, and you want to be resourceful and use the open source resources that are out there. There are templates on standard advisory agreements that you can use. But again, before you just drop an advisory agreement into somebody's email box, it's best to have a informal meeting with the person. You reach out to them first and say, hello, my name is, I am the founder of, I am looking for this purpose. I would love to have an opportunity to meet with you, to share more about my company and to learn about your, your interests and so forth. Then you have a meeting with them. You share about your company. You learn about a little bit about the person. It's that informal meeting that you have. You get a vibe. It's all about a vibe. I'm all about vibes, right? If I get this vibe, it's like, I don't know. So so you got to figure out the whole vibe thing. And then if you, at that point, you can invite them to become a member of the board. And it doesn't have to be a huge financial, an equity decision. It has to be an agreed upon, right? Because it also depends on their level of engagement, their level of knowledge, and so forth. Oftentimes you have members that say, I just want to help out. I can give you like an hour every 4 months. They're not looking for any equity. They love your idea and they just kind of want to help, and they got a network. So again, there's template advisory agreements, but before you do any of that, have a conversation, because we are in the era of catfishing, right? You can meet someone online and all of their credentials look good. Their whole network looks great. And then this is not a real person. They're really looking for your information. So just do your due diligence, right? And then the second thing is, at what point, or the second question is, at what point do you bring an advisory board on? Now, before you engage anyone into a formalized committee, if you will, you need to have your thoughts concrete. And when I say concrete, it doesn't have to be finalized, but you need to know, what is your company? What is your mission? What is your vision? Who is your target audience? And why are you seeking an advisory board? Because I'm not going to join an advisory board if you just woke up yesterday and had an idea and you think it's great, because that is a waste of my time, and time is money and time is valuable, right? And so you want to have an idea of where you are going, what you're building, right? Have a marketable product in mind, even though you're in the beginning stages, so that way you can project out information to those that are coming together to help you, because they can't help you if they don't understand what you're doing. So if you're still in the ideation phase, it would be best for you to work with an incubator, so that way you can incubate your ideas, and at the end of that phase, then it would be time to seek advice from clinical experts that can help you accelerate, right?
Thank you very much.
Yes, all good questions. Let's see who else. So Tammy said she had one of her startups in there that were doing 3D medical printing, no Medicare CP toes. Yeah, very important to understand that. And who is that? Yeah, so I was trying to see if there were any other questions in there. So then we have, who is it? Daniel Knott or Daniel Cott. And are you there, Daniel? It might be on mute. Okay. And Rod Annabelle. Hi, Rod. Alan, and is it Osama Hassan? Hello, thanks for joining. Any questions, Cynthia? Or Catherine or Floral? I love your image. And I believe it's Yulia Simak. Just want to give everyone an opportunity. If there's any, Amanda, you raise your hand.
Oh, that was from earlier when you asked us if we
Oh,
had
okay.
advisory boards yet.
Sure. Hi, Flora.
Hi, Aliya, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, sorry I joined in a bit late. I was from another meeting.
Sure.
I had a couple of questions, but Josiah has done good work to ask before me. I just wanted to ask about the strategies on how to source and to approach potential board of advisors, but you mentioned that in your answer. And then also, how early on do you approach a potential advisor? I was in a nurse hackathon, I think a week ago.
Oh, okay, the Sunfield Hackathon?
Yes, it went well. We received positive feedback about our potential solution.
Mhm.
We have about, I think, 2 coaches that were present that are willing to work with us.
Okay.
The team, I'm based in Kenya, I'm in Nairobi, Kenya.
Mhm.
I had intended to participate in your boot camp, but I wasn't able to make it in time.
No worries, we'll be having another one.
Nice, nice. So we have a team. I'm in Africa, and the team that I have currently is based in the US. So we are really trying to figure out the time zones and decide which way to go.
Mhm.
It's something that I had in mind, but going into the hackathon, the context in which we presented the problem is a global problem. I get that, but my interest particularly was in Africa.
Mhm.
My team is based in US, so I'm just trying to see how best you can merge the two to start something formally. But I don't know, maybe I'll talk to you later off this platform, just a little bit to get your insights going
Okay,
forward.
sure, yeah. We'll love to. My email, I dropped it in the chat. I can drop it again. Please email me. I would love to chat with you. And I participated in the Sunfield Hackathon back in 2019. So I'm pretty sure that you had a great experience, and I'd love to get to know more about your solution that you're working towards and see how Nurse Innovation Hub can help you in that matter.
Thank you so much, Aliya.
Any other, let's see, did I miss? Hi, Scott Collins, and then Alan. I see Alan on there too. Any others that love to share or have any questions? Because I know we're coming across our time, but this is wonderful. I love to talk, I can talk clinical advisory boards, anything related to healthcare all day long. I've been in the field for a while. I know that if you are a clinician, there are certain there's this knowledge that you have when you're building. If you aren't a clinician, but you're building for healthcare, which we very much appreciate because there is a huge need for impacted care. And, you know, to work with clinicians is is definitely something that you should consider if you have not. And that is building a clinical advisory board. That is also working and having a clinical focus group, or having a mentor that is a clinician. In addition, there are various ways, but today was about the clinical advisory board and the need for that. All right, so let me just type my email again in the chat.
All right, everyone, we have time for one more question. I personally want to thank Aliya. This was amazing, amazing, chock full of such great information. You have to see, I took 2 pages of notes. So thank you so much. Does anyone have another question for this amazing woman? All right, please reach out to Aliya. And again, you can also reach out to me. Maybe Mary, you can drop my email in the chat. Thank you all so very, very much for attending, and we wish you the best of luck.
Absolutely. Wish you very much. Thanks, Tammy and Mary, for having me today. And I will look to connect with you all again shortly.